Hi, this is Joe with Prep Agent, and I'm here today with Amber, my best friend for the day. Right, Amber?
That's right.
Okay, so Amber's getting ready to take her test, and before she takes her test, she wanted to review some concepts with me, which is awesome. Happy to do it. The first one you wanted to go over was what? What was the first one you wanted to go over?
Trustees, mortgages, and promissory notes.
Yes. So Amber emailed me about knowing the difference between trust deeds, mortgages, and promissory notes. I love that you asked me about this because people get this wrong or get it confused all the time, and including yourself, right? You got a little confused with this?
Yes, I mean, I've read the definitions 100 times and I still cannot understand it.
Well, when you're done, you're magically going to understand and everything's going to be okay.
Perfect.
It's going to be great. Okay,
Thanks,
so
best
let's
friend.
start with this. So let's start with the promissory note. It starts there. Now, what's the thing I tell everybody in the webinars all the time?
Keep it simple.
Keep it
Keyword.
simple. Don't make it more complicated than it needs to be. So I have this thing, the first promissory note in the world. Are you excited to see it?
I'm excited.
Okay, here we go. The very first promissory note. Boom. What are you looking at right now?
Caveman etched a note in stone.
What does that note say?
I owe you stuff.
Okay, now that goes to my point that let's keep it as simple as possible. Because simply said, this is a promissory note. This is a promissory note. Why is this a promissory note? I mean, it's just a stone with a guy writing it in like a caveman stone writing, I owe you stuff. Why is that a promissory note?
It's kind of like an IOU. He's promising, like, hey, I owe you.
Yes, it's evidence that they owe you. I owe you. That's all it is. And I want people to understand that when you go get a loan on a house, you sign something that says, here's the evidence that I owe money. That's all it is. And the reason I use this cartoon, is it literally the cartoon of the caveman? No. But hopefully it drives home the point. It's that simple. And don't complicate it more. People make it complicated because very often promissory notes include certain things like duration, debts, percentages, things that make it a little trickier. But for your exam, you have to know what it is at its core. It's just something that says what you owe. Does that make sense?
Yeah, so I guess maybe I'm reading too much into the note part. So is it actually just a piece of paper that when you go there and I guess I was thinking like a note, like something that carries with you?
Well, let's first separate what
Okay,
actually happens when you get a loan from a bank versus what the definition is so you could pass your exam.
cool.
Okay, so it is just an IOU. Now, obviously, when you get a loan from a bank, is it as simple as writing something in stone? No.
Right.
But it is the evidence of the debt. The borrower borrows money from a lender. Before the lender gives the borrower money, the borrower must sign an IOU, which is called the note. The note states the terms of the loan. This is the most important proof of the loan. It's those terms of the loan is why people get confused. Because there's a lot of numbers and information there that's very important when you get a loan. However, to pass your exam, don't let that gray the pure definition of what it is. It's an IOU, just like you said. And that's why I made my little art with the napkin. Like if we're eating dinner together and I lose my wallet and I'm like, Amber, I'm such a moron. I don't have my money. And be like, Joe, you did this again. I'm so annoyed. I paid for you last time. You didn't pay me back. What can we do?
Is this a trick question? Give
No,
me
it's not
another
a trick question.
IOU?
We eat dinner. You don't trust me. I need you to pay for my dinner. What can we do?
Um,
Give me a napkin. I'll write, Amber, I owe you 50 bucks.
right. So just like another IOU.
Exactly. That's a promissory note.
Gotcha. Okay.
It's that simple. No, it's not a trick question. I'll pay you back for dinner if we ever eat dinner together.
Okay, perfect.
After you sell a house, correct?
That's right.
Yes. Okay. So the note states the terms of the loan. It would be like me writing on the napkin, Amber, I had a burrito and 3 margaritas, and I totally owe you for that. Here it is. Boom. I owe you. Okay.
Awesome.
So now it gets a little trickier. So that's the promissory note. But now we get into this thing of mortgage. We're going to talk about mortgages and trust deeds. Can I ask you, what you've heard the term mortgage a lot. Are you a homeowner?
I'm not.
Okay, well, don't worry about it. But you heard the term mortgage before, correct?
Yes.
What is it?
A mortgage is when you go to a lender. It's money owed.
In the simplest term, what do you think it is? Now, I've also said if there's two ways you understand something. Can you explain it in an elevator? That 5-second rule. And
Right.
also, could you explain it to a 5-year-old? Could you simplify it? So, when you said, what did you say a mortgage is? Repeat that again.
Money owed?
Not exactly. Just remember, that's the promissory note saying
Okay.
what you owe. So let's
Mm-hmm.
back up for a second. And I love that we're having this conversation because what you're doing, everybody does. Remember, we started this by saying everybody has trouble with this. So I
Right.
love the fact that you brought this up today. And I'm going to give you a little history today that will help everybody really nail this down. You're a history buff, right?
No.
Well, maybe it's time to start, right?
Okay.
Okay. So what is a mortgage? A mortgage is not actually a loan. It's not a loan. People use the word as if it's a loan. The
Right. That's
mortgage is a document that gives to the lender that creates a lien on the property. What's a lien?
lien money, lien money, lien money.
Right. So it creates a lien on the property. What does that mean?
It creates money owed on the property.
But a lien, it does
On the
mean money.
property.
You're absolutely right. It means you owe money, but it also means that if you don't pay it, what happens?
They'll come and take it.
Exactly. Exactly. So a mortgage creates that document that says if you don't pay the money, then guess what? We're taking your property.
Okay.
And we said, what is a lien? So let's say it again. What's a lien?
Lien money, lien money, lien money, money owed.
Let's go on a
Right?
little tangent for a second since we're reviewing stuff, right?
Okay.
What's the difference between a general lien and a specific lien?
So a specific lien is when they're coming after something specific. A general lien is when they'll come and take all your stuff.
Good, good. That's excellent. So what specifically are we talking about when it's a specific lien?
Um,
Don't overthink it. It's really obvious.
your house.
Exactly. Perfect. Your house. What's the difference between a voluntary lien and an involuntary lien?
I would say I'm going to break it up like how you tell me sometimes well, you don't tell me, but in your webinars, you say sometimes the answer is right in front of you. So
Okay,
I
it is. That is true.
voluntary would mean you're volunteering to go out and get a lien
Why would you do that? That sounds ridiculous.
because you have to get a lien on for your house.
Is that mortgage voluntary? Do you have to get a mortgage?
Well, you don't have to.
It's
I guess it's
voluntary. So that's a
right.
voluntary lien, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that mortgage, would you say it's a voluntary specific lien?
Yes, it's voluntary because you're volunteering to go out and get it. It's a specific because it's one thing, and it's a lien because it's money owed.
Yeah. So example of a general lien would be something like when you go to the court, right? Like a judgment lien, and they
Mm-hmm.
say you lose, you owe the money, and if you don't pay it, we're coming after everything. So that's involuntary in general. So if you get sued and you lose and the court issues a judgment lien, that would be an example of a general involuntary lien.
Right. Okay. Yep.
But when you go to the bank, that's a specific voluntary lien. Okay?
Okay.
Excellent. Good. All right, but we're talking about mortgages here. Let's get back to what we're talking about here. Okay. The lien theory states the real property is pledged, is mortgaged, the lending institution which has a lien on the property. Any purchaser of that property takes it subject to that lien. Sounds very fancy. That's kind of like the wording you're going to see on your exam. But hopefully you could break that down. Could you look at that sentence and know what I mean here?
Yes.
Okay, so in lien theory states, so they have title theory and lien theory states. Lien theory is used as mortgages for the most part. That means you owe money. The real property is pledged. Okay, so it's collateral. And it's pledged to that lending institution. Okay? So what does it mean when you take property subject to that lien?
When I take property?
Subject to that lien. When you take property subject to the lien.
I don't know.
Basically, all I'm getting at is you're taking that property with the assumption that if you don't pay the money, they'll take your house.
Okay, right.
Simple, 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 simple. What does subject to mean?
Oh, I know this. You talked about this at the
We have
webinar.
subject to and assume. So when you get a property, right?
Mm-hmm.
Subject to and assume. Assume, subject to. So you buy the property from me, okay? I have a loan, excuse me, I have a lien, a debt that needs to be paid to the lender, and you're buying that property from me. Typically, now there's exceptions to everything, but typically, how are you getting this property? Subject to or assume?
Subject to.
Why?
If I'm buying the property from you?
Yeah, so you're correct in your answer. You're correct. I just want to know why. What do you think?
I'm subject to the loan?
Good. Yes, you're warming up. You're buying that property subject to the fact that I am going to take care of my loan. It's going to be terminated. Then you'll get your own loan on the property.
Right.
Assume means you would take over the loan.
Correct.
Okay.
I'm going to assume ownership kind of thing, right?
Yes. And there's situations that make sense, but we're not going to get into that right now.
Okay.
But you just need to know subject to, assume. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
Assume buyer's liable, subject to seller's liable. All right?
Mm-hmm.
Banks insist on paid off before the property is sold. This is known as a due on sales clause. That's what I mean. I have a due on sales clause. When it's sold, I have to pay off the loan. And usually I pay it off with the proceeds from the sale of the house. Easy stuff. Right. How are we doing so far? So we're brushing up on stuff you already know. I think you're pretty good.
Yes, yes. So, I mean, but it's always good to touch base. This is great.
Yeah, I think you're going to do awesome.
Thanks, Joe.
You're
Best
welcome.
friend.
Yeah, you go. Okay, but before I compliment you too much, we're going to get into the murky waters.
Yeah, no, this is what I wanted to know.
You see, we're warming up to the part that's like, you're like, where was he going with this? You're starting to see where I'm going with this.
Right.
Okay, there are two parties to a mortgage. What are they?
Mortgager and mortgagee.
Mortgagee, mortgagor, mortgagor, mortgagee. Ugh. And what question always comes up with this?
Who is the mortgager?
Yes, all the time. And I'm going to answer that in a second. I'm going to answer it, and people who listen to this webinar will never question it again because this always gets messed up. Why is he the mortgagor? Why are they the mortgagee? Joe, you said OR give or EE receive, blah, 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 blah. I get that, like, every day I get that question, okay?
I'm sure.
And just so people out there know, when I read that question, that's the voice I hear in my head. I hear the blah, blah, blah. That's what I hear. Isn't that terrible? I probably shouldn't say that.
No, it's okay. This is a circle of trust.
Total circle of trust with us and everybody in YouTube land.
That's right.
Okay, so there are two parties to a mortgage. And the reason I hear that voice is, and I'll get to that in a second, is because I get that question over and over again, and so many people teach it wrong. That's why I get annoyed with it. So it's not the people asking, it's the teachers they have that bother me. But before we do that, what security does the lender have once they give money to the borrower? What's their security?
The promissory note?
No.
Okay, hold on. Let me take some guesses.
No, don't guess. It's very obvious. You'll be okay.
Is
What happens
it
if you don't pay?
they come and take it, the lien,
Take what?
The property.
Yes, the property. That's the security. That's the collateral. Right there. Okay? Once again, don't overthink it. That's your collateral. Okay. The security known as the collateral is the property which is bought with the funds given to the borrower. The borrower pledges the property. Okay, so we're going to get this done once and for all. So we're going to do some history here. So mortgage literally means the roots death pledge, if you go to the Latin roots of it.
Oh.
The borrower pledged to give the lender the property if the borrower cannot pay back the loan in full. This actually goes back to the days in old world France, this word, where I would get property, but I would only own it if I worked for you until the day I die. So the poor people in France would have to work until the day I die if they wanted to own property. So it actually literally means death pledge. The reason I'm using this example, because it'll stick in your head, that the mortgage is not the note. It's not the money you owe. The mortgage is that lien. It's that pledge that if you don't pay, then they're going to take your property. That's what that mortgage is.
Gotcha.
And that's why, because I have a feeling you're going to remember, wow, that's going to stick. Mortgage actually means death pledge, and it does. You guys could Google that in YouTube land if you want. And the reason I'm using that example is I think it's going to stick in your head. I'll never get it again. That the mortgage is not the money owed. It's that pledge that says if you don't do what you're going to do, your property's gone.
Right. Okay.
Mortgage comes from the French mort-gage, literally death pledge. The French peasants were working until they died for the privilege of owning a house. This is one of those facts that you're totally going to remember for the next 10 years. And when you're selling houses, you're totally going to use that when conversation dulls. You're going to be like, by the way, did you know that this means death pledge?
Okay, Joe, can I stop you just for a second?
Yes.
Okay, so just to break it down because I'm like a super keyword person.
Yes.
So promissory note, we're talking about an IOU.
Yes.
Mortgage, we're talking about pledge.
Yes.
Gotcha. Okay.
Perfect. Good. Good stoppage, Amber.
Thank you.
Okay. Here's my next question. This question will not be on your real estate exam, but you should know it for life and it'll help you pass your real estate exam. What is a suffix? Do you know your English literature?
Listen, I didn't study that word. This is a trick question.
It is. I'll help you. It is tricky, so I'll help you. A suffix is something added to the end of a word that conditions its usage or meaning. And I'll tell you why I bring this up and it'll help you pass your exam. Because very often people hear the OREE rule, okay?
Right.
And they say lessor, trustor, grantor, gives it to the lessee, trustee, grantee, so on and so forth. And then the teacher gets up and he says, but the mortgage is an exception to that rule. Any teacher who says that, leave the classroom immediately. They don't know what they're talking about. And the reason I said a suffix, because it's not an exception to the rule. That's basic English language. A suffix is something that denotes an action. Okay? So the suffix OR denotes the person who performs an action. The suffix EE is used to denote the recipient of that action. So I do that witty thing, you may remember it, lessor, grantor, vendor, optionor, giveor, proprietor, for your pleasure. Lessee, vendee, grantee, optionee, give me, property makes me happy, right? I do that fun little thing in some of the videos.
Yes, love it.
Love it. And what my issue is when they say mortgage is an exception is because they're not understanding what is being given and what is being received. And this is the crux of why a lot of people get confused. But there's no exception to the rule because it's a suffix. It's basic English language. The OREE rule. OR giveor, EE receives. Or as I wrote here to be more technical, OR denotes the person who performs an action. EE denotes a recipient of that action. That's the technical English language definition of it.
Gotcha.
So, here comes the crux of this issue. Since the borrower is pledging the property, and this is where this all kind of comes together, everything we've been talking about, they are mortgaging the property, and thus they are known as the mortgagor. The lender is the recipient of that pledge, and therefore is the mortgagee. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely.
And people always get it messed up because they're like, wait a minute, the borrower is receiving the money. Shouldn't they be the mortgagee? And I stop them and I say, what is it that's being given and what is it that's being received?
Right. And so the borrower is giving or pledging the property.
Yes, perfect.
That's why it's the mortgagor, and then the mortgagee, the lender, is saying, "Hey, well, I'm going to give you some money since you're pledging it. I got it."
Right, and the
Since
reason
I'm
I went,
receiving
and
the
hopefully the way
property.
I went about this is good for you and everybody who's listening, but I had to go about it this way because I wanted to get through that understanding of what it is that's being given and what's being received. And that's why I started with the promissory note. That's about the IOU money. So the mortgage is really not about the money. It is, obviously, but the literal point of it, it's the pledge of the property.
Right.
And that's why the mortgagor is giving that pledge and the mortgagee is receiving it. So there's no exception to the English language when we're talking about a suffix with the O-R-E-E, as long as you understand what is being given and what is being received. Sounds good, right?
Sounds great.
I hope you're a little more clear on that now.
Yeah, no, I mean, definitely good definition for sure.
Okay. And you're going to remember forever that it means death pledge, literally.
Yes, yes, I will.
Totally.
That'll break
Okay,
the ice
just
for
when we
sure.
thought we were out of the woods, there's this other annoying thing that comes up. Trust deeds. How annoying is that?
I know.
Okay, but it's actually very simple. Okay? The trust deeds has three parties. Do you know who they are?
Um, they are.
Here, read it off here.
Oh, okay. Trustee, beneficiary.
Yes, trustor, trustee, and beneficiary. The reason this is different is because it's a third party relationship. The mortgage is a two-party relationship, mortgagor, mortgagee. Trust deed has a three-party relationship, right?
Right.
Okay.
Trustor, giver, trustee receives. Beneficiary is gets the benefits.
They're the bank. They're the money people.
Gotcha.
Okay? So then the question becomes, this where it gets a little difficult here. What is the trustor giving and what is the trustee giving? And that's the crux of what's difficult about these things. What are they giving and what is being received? Okay, do you know?
Um, no.
Here, let's start here. What's title?
Ownership.
Ownership. Excellent. Good. What's equitable title and what's legal title?
No, I mean, ec equitable, I would think.
Okay,
Good title.
legal title is the right to sell. Equitable title is the right to use and possess.
Gotcha.
Okay?
I heard that, yeah.
All right. Okay, so you have the trustor, trustee, and beneficiary. I have these four things here. A house, my little legal title thing here, an equitable title, and a little money sign, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so we start here with the trustor. Let's give him legal title here. But he wants to borrow money. He doesn't have any money. So the money is over there. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
What he's going to do is call the beneficiary and say, hey, beneficiary, I need money. Could you give me money, please? What's the beneficiary going to say?
Yes, I'll give you money for title.
First, he'll be like, wait a minute. I don't know you're going to pay me back. I mean, I don't trust you at all. I mean, who knows what you're going to do? Correct?
Right.
I mean, so then he'll say, listen, Trustor, here's what I want you to do. Give legal title to my friend, the trustee. If you do that,
Mm.
I'll give you some money here. Okay? And you could live in the property. All right? And we'll have equitable title. Because he has the right to use and possess. Make sense?
Yes. In my, I guess that was the question that I always get confused on because, like, the definition of deed of trust that I have
Yes, what do
is
you have?
that it's a guarantee of payment by the borrower and a pledge of the property as collateral for debt.
Yeah, that is true. That is absolutely true. That has not changed. Okay?
See, so that's where I get confused, like mortgage, pledge, deed of trust, pledge. So I'm
It's
like, ah,
here's the difference. Here's the difference. I'm thrilled you asked that. They both have to do with pledging the property. Okay? The difference has to do with how they go about getting that property in case you don't pay them back.
okay,
Basically foreclosure. One's called a trustee sale, one's just a judicial foreclosure. Okay? I don't want to get too much into that just yet. Here's the difference. In this one, if they don't pay the beneficiary, so the trustor doesn't pay the beneficiary, okay?
mm-hmm,
The beneficiary will contact the trustee who has legal title, and he will sell that property, the collateral, to compensate for that lack of money. The trustee is a middleman.
I was just about to ask you, where does he come in play in all this? Okay,
So the trustee is a middleman. So the trustor doesn't pay the beneficiary. Beneficiary will go, hey, trustee, remember that guy at Trustor? He didn't pay me. Get him. And the trustee will say, okay. And obviously there's a proper proceeding to that and the way it happens.
right,
And they will sell the property because they have legal title.
okay.
So they're both collateral, just like you said. Either way, that house is the collateral.
So in a mortgage, does the bank hold the title?
Yeah, well, they go through something like a court foreclosure. And each
Okay,
state has different rules on that, so I don't want to confuse you on this. There's different reasons for going through it in different states.
okay. I
And by
mean,
the
yeah,
way, for people who are listening, after you pass your exam, there's people who make entire livings just off knowing the nuances of foreclosures.
gotcha, yeah.
We don't want to get too confusing with that right now, but it's a whole another ball game.
Okay,
So, legal title is the right to sell. Equitable title is the right to use and possess. Okay? And at the same time, if the trustor pays back the beneficiary everything, the trustee will issue that reconveyance deed, which says the loan is paid off, which says everything's done. They'll issue
okay,
back to the trustor. So it works both ways in that situation. So the trustee could take the property away, and he could also say, hey, everything's done. He's paid everything he owes. Done. Reconveyance deed. So it's supposed to be a third party in there. All right?
okay. And tell me one more time,
Yes.
equitable legal title is
The right to sell,
the right to sell. Equitable title is the right to
use and possess.
use and possess. Okay,
And then when
gotcha.
he pays off everything, the trustor will have both when everything's paid off.
Perfect. Okay,
Okay?
gotcha.
All right. You don't use as much as in your state. Other states do, but they test you on both in your state. So you got to know the basics of both, as you know.
I passed my state, so I'm not
Go
worried
get
about
them.
that too much.
All right. Here we go. Okay. So you should be able to answer this question now.
Okay, what is equitable title is the right to possess, and what is legal title? The right to sell.
And just so we're clear, that's a very simplified definition, which I'm fine with right now. But there's nuances to that as well if you guys study your books and see. But that's a great start to understand the gist of the concept so you can pass your exam.
Perfect.
Okay, you also asked me about contract for deed. Sounds very confusing and daunting, doesn't it?
Mm-hmm.
It's not. But they should make this word a lot easier. Okay? They should just call it giving the seller money or seller lender. That's all they should call it. Do you know what a contract for deed is?
Um, it's, I don't want to butcher it.
Butcher away.
Okay, I think it is, sorry, I'm looking at my notes here I have written down. A contract for deed, I don't know. I'm better if like I see it and then I could tell you like that's what
Okay,
it is.
no worries. So, on the simplest level, a contract for deed is this. You want to buy my property, okay?
Right?
You don't have all the money. So, what can I do?
I want to buy your property, but I don't have enough money to buy it.
So, what can I do as a seller? I want you to have it. I think you're great. What can we work out? I totally want you to get it. You don't have enough right now. What could I do?
Like a lease to own?
Too complicated. I could
Okay.
be the lender.
Right. Okay, good. Yes.
Okay, so I could just be the lender. In that scenario, based on what we just learned, who has equitable title and who has legal title?
So the seller will have legal title. Now I'm remembering. So the seller will have legal title until paid off,
Yeah,
till the debt's paid off, and then um, the buyer will have equitable title.
awesome. It's all coming together. You're doing great.
Thanks.
There you go. And that's what I said. Contract for deed sounds very complicated. They should just call it like seller giving money to Amber or something like that.
Right. I agree. We need to talk to them about that.
Yes. All it is I'm becoming the lender. So I retain legal title and you have equitable title. Because if you don't pay me, then I can sell it off.
Right.
Okay? Very simple stuff here. Seller provides financing for the person who is buying their property. The seller loans the buyer's funds and allows the person to live on the property. The buyer is obligated to make payments on the property. That's simple. I
Yes,
get the
very.
feeling before we got on this call, it was a lot more complicated in your head than it is now.
It it was. I was needing you to explain because that way I could pick up keywords and know. So when I see that, I'm like, okay. The whole thing with the deed and the mortgage, both of them contain like that pledge,
Right.
you know,
And
keep
this
something, and that's what was confusing for me.
and by the way, you bring up a great point. The reason it's good we're going over this in this way, and people should do this either with a friend, a teacher, or something else. People love doing multiple choice questions. Multiple choice, multiple choice, multiple choice. At some point you got to understand the concepts. Otherwise, you're just looking for words and not knowing exactly why they are there. And the problem with that is if your actual exam does not simulate those words you're filling out on those practice tests, it won't
Hmm.
work. Or even worse, if they're just slightly different than your practice tests, you get confused.
Right.
Whereas if you understand the concept, when it's a little different, you're like, all right, I understand what they're getting at. I know what they mean here. It's a little different because of this, and the other.
Yes,
And
definitely.
so it's good we're going through this today to go over pledge, deed, title, equitable title, legal title, all those different things.
Exactly. I agree.
Yeah, and so a lot of those questions are making a little more sense. So today already did legal title, equitable title, pledge, lien, a bunch of things here that are kind of working together. And my feeling is that before you got on this call, or for others, they were functioning as separate concepts, almost like just memorizing random words.
Right.
And hopefully, what I'm doing for you today and doing for other people listening is saying they're not random words. It all works together in a greater picture.
Yes.
Okay. Okay, the next thing you asked me about was agency. Agency. What's a fiduciary?
The rights? Or do
What
you
is a
want me to?
fiduciary? So when you have a fiduciary duty or your fiduciary relationship, what does that mean?
Um, it means what the relationship that is owed to your client. Like a
Good. Responsibility, act truthfully, good faith, all those kind of good stuff. Basically, put your client's interests above your own.
correct.
It's
Put
basically
them
the
before
legal
you.
term for be a good person. I mean, that's simply what it is.
Exactly. I'm like just being a good person.
Right, right, right. It says here, in professional responsibility, act truthfully and with good faith in representing a client. Do what your mother taught you to do. That's the basic gist of it, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's the core of an agency relationship. So next we have general agency and a special agency relationship. And we spoke about this before we got on this call.
Yes.
So what's a general agency and special agency? What do you know about those two words?
So a general agency is when um, you do more than one thing for your client.
Okay.
And then a special agency would be they want you to do that specific thing.
What's an example of that?
A specific agency,
Mm-hmm.
um, finding an able and willing buyer,
What's that?
like finding an able and willing buyer,
Good. Great. What's that called? What's that contract called?
an employment contract.
Being too fancy for me, but I
Oh,
love what you're
sorry.
saying.
Okay,
Everything you're saying is correct.
a listing.
Yeah, it's a listing. When you get hired to
Right.
take a listing, that's a specific agency, a special agency, because you're getting hired to do one thing. Like you said, find that ready, willing, and able buyer. Sounds excellent. You've totally been studying. Okay, read this out loud, please.
Awesome. Special agent. A special agent is one who has limited authority granted to him or her through a principal. The relationship with the principal is not expected to be continuous. The listing contract creates a special agency relationship with the seller. The authority is limited to the duties given in the listing contract, and the relationship ends when the terms have been fulfilled.
Exactly what you just said a second ago. With find that ready, willing, and able buyer.
Right.
You're hired to do one thing specifically or
So
special.
a special agent would be a real estate agent, right?
Well, we were doing so well, we just took a right at somewhere. Um, no, a real estate agent is a title for somebody who works somewhere. A real estate agent could be hired by somebody and be a special agent for somebody else and a general agent for somebody else. Depends on what they're contracted to do.
Okay, I got you. So, well, that's good to know because that's in my book as like an example of a special agent. So, great.
Right. We spoke before, like as an agent, could
Yeah,
you be hired to be a property manager?
yeah, absolutely.
Sure, but now you're functioning as a general agent because you're being asked to do many things. Here, read the definition of general agent.
A general agent is authorized by the principal to perform any and all acts associated with the ongoing operation of the job or business. A real estate licensee acting in the capacity of a property manager is a general agent to the owner.
Right. So you can't say a real estate agent is a specific agent. A real estate agent is just a title. It's a licensed person with a license.
Right. And they could go either way,
Yeah, it
depending
depends what you're
on
being hired
what
to
they're
do.
asked to do. Right.
Exactly. Because a property manager, I use that example because it's a good one because it's not one act. There's multiple things going on there. Whereas when you take a listing, I'm hiring to find a buyer. You do that, done, high five, fist bump, see you later.
Gotcha.
What's an implied agency?
Um, an implied agency is by actions, orally or written.
Why do I have a picture of a duck there?
You
There's a
like
famous
that?
expression that really works for this.
Have you used this before?
Well, I'm going to now. You
Oh,
ever heard the
okay.
term looks like a duck, walks like a duck, acts like a duck, must be a duck?
Right.
So, what am I getting at with this, with implied agency?
It's exactly what it says.
If you're acting as that, you are that. It's implied you are that person. It occurs from actions of parties. So, if I'm showing you property, quoting prices, taking you around, doing up contracts with you, I have just become your agent. It's an implied agency.
Uh-huh.
And this is very scary for real estate agents because you can become legally responsible depending on the laws in your state. But agents have to be careful about this because if you do enough, if I tell you to sell your property for a certain amount and you start acting upon my advice, it could get very tricky, gray areas with the laws about that. Because their argument is you're acting as an agent, you are the agent.
Right.
It's an implied agency. That's why many agents, when they start getting asked advice, they'll say, hold on, am I your real estate agent or not? Like, what's going on here? So they don't slip into that gray area of being responsible for somebody they didn't really want to be responsible for.
Right. Okay.
The laws on that, worry about after you pass. My point is, the implied agency occurs from your actions, much like
Okay.
an implied contract. Do you know what an implied contract is?
Um, the relationship between broker and seller?
Ooh, no, much simpler. The actions, same as implied agency, are what dictates that you're contractually obligated to perform. For example, when you go to a restaurant, do you
Oh,
pay the
okay.
bill?
No.
You
Oh,
don't pay the
yes,
bill?
I'll pay the bill.
Yes, you pay the bill. Did you sign a contract saying you're going to pay the bill when you sat down at that restaurant?
No.
No, it's implied that when they give you the check at the end, you're going to pay it. They serve you the
Right.
food with the understanding that you're going to pay at the end. And you can't say, when they serve you that food and they bring you the check at the end, can you be like, nope, I never signed anything saying I'll pay for this. It was delicious, but I'm not paying for it. Can you do that?
No.
No, because it's implied that when you sat down, you were going to pay that. That's
And
an
you said
implied
you said
contract.
implied contract.
What's that?
You said implied contract,
That's an
correct?
implied contract. But the
Yes.
concept's
Okay.
not that different from an implied agency. They're both
Right.
similar in that the actions connotate what you are.
Right. Okay.
Okay?
No, I got it. Earlier, I thought you were like tricking me again, asking me to like tell you implied agency. So perfect. Implied contract, got it right here in my on my notes.
Good. Okay, read that out loud, please.
Real estate professional provides the type of guidance and advice that would be reserved for clients, but that consumer relies upon that advice.
That could
But that
create an
consumer.
implied agency. That situation right there. Okay?
Okay. Sorry, I was rereading it.
Oh, okay. You can read it. You want to read it out loud again?
Real estate professional provides the type of guidance and advice that would be reserved for clients, but that consumer relies upon that advice.
Yeah. So basically, you're acting as an agent and they're relying on it, so they're treating you as their agent.
Right.
And you're
So
getting
if
into
I'm
very
sitting there
murky
asking them
water there.
questions about what I need to do and they tell me what I'm going to do and that ends up being what I do, that's an
Yes.
implied agency, correct? I
Yeah,
mean,
now
implied
obviously my
contract.
disclosure kicks in here that I'm not a lawyer, but
Right.
we get the concept here.
Gotcha.
Okay, you also asked me something about appraisal, which we'll finish up with today. But before we do that, what are the four essential elements of value?
Um, Gosh, I know this. Give me just a second.
Okay.
And this isn't like a little, you know how you do your little things to tell?
Oh, it is one of my little things, for sure.
It is?
It's totally one of my little things. One of
Okay,
my
hold
favorite
on.
little things of all.
Okay, it's not Maria. It's
No,
not. It's not Pete.
Hold on. You're not getting away with saying those words without saying what they mean.
Okay, Maria is method. Agreement.
Adaptability
Sorry, adaptability. Relationship, intention, and
and agreement.
I thought, oh, okay. When you said agreement, sorry, I don't say them in the
I
that
know,
exact.
my bad. I should have done that.
I was
Terrible.
like, oh crap. Okay.
What? But you didn't say what are we testing for? What's Maria for?
Oh, for personal property
Fixtures. It's a test for a fixture.
fixtures. Yes.
Okay. And what's Pete?
Pete is government powers.
Great.
So,
What are they?
police power, eminent domain, taxation, and escheat.
Good. Now back to this one. The four. What are the four essential elements of value?
Okay.
You
I
could use
can't.
dust or stud. Here, you want
Yeah.
me to help you with this one?
No, no,
Okay,
because I
sorry. Don't help, don't help.
hold on. All right, let's see here. Chukka chukka chukka. It is demand, utility, scarcity, and transferability.
Excellent. Demand, utility, scarcity, transferability. Oh, terrible spelling by me.
I'll forgive you since you gave me time.
Yes, that's dust, D-U-S-T. I've always hated that because dust is not valuable. I've always preferred scarcity, transferability, utility, and demand. Stud. I've always preferred that. Doesn't it just sound way better?
I agree.
But honestly, dust, stud, or you can use tizida for all I care, as long as you remember it. Tizida is not really a word, people. Okay. So, scarcity, transferability, utility, demand. Demand, utility, scarcity, transferability. Gotta know those. Those are easy ones to get right on your exam.
Agreed.
Okay. What is depreciation?
Um, value, loss of value on your property.
Loss of value for any cause. Very simple definition.
Gotcha.
Okay? There's three ways that your property could depreciate. And this is leading up to the question you asked me about. Do you know what they are?
I do not know what
Yes,
they
you
are.
do. You asked me about one. Function.
I did. Tell me, whisper it again.
Look at the screen.
Oh, yeah, yeah. Okay. Oh, perfect. That I didn't even know that. So that's great.
You did. You asked me about the first one before we got on the call.
I know I asked you because I didn't know.
All right. Well played. Good point. Okay. What does the word functional mean?
I think I can give you a definition of all of these three, kind of like how I remember them, and tell me if I screwed it up.
Okay. Let's do it.
Okay, so functional obsolescence, and I don't know if I'm saying that right. That could be example of you have a home that has 5 bedrooms and 1 bathroom. It's not very functional for a family
Perfect.
to.
Good.
Okay, economic obsolescence is anything that's going to happen like outside or around you.
Perfect.
Um, is that good enough for me to give you?
Yeah. No, it's absolutely spot on. It's things that happen outside the property lines.
Okay, cool. And then physical deterioration is going to be like, um, I mean, basically like the property, it's what they consider wear and tear.
Yeah, it's falling apart. Your property's falling
Right.
apart. I
Did
mean,
I
just
pass?
think it in the most simple terms of this. Functional, it's not functional. 1 bathroom, 5 bedrooms.
Right.
Economic, like the economy is not have to do with your property. It's outside the property lines. And
Right.
physical deterioration, your property's deteriorating.
Right.
Okay? So like the roof's falling apart, physical deterioration. If there's murder in your neighborhood, which one would that be?
If there's murder in my neighborhood,
Yeah.
It's
Terrible
gonna
thing. Somebody's
it's gonna be outside. It's economic.
good. Okay. Um, so you got this pretty well. Which one's the hardest to cure?
Um, the hardest to fix?
Yeah, out of those three.
I would say I can't fix anything outside my home, so
Excellent.
economic.
Yeah, I mean, you could say you'd have a neighborhood watch, fix things, but most people just simply move, right?
Right. Functional, we
Functional,
could
you
add
could,
another bathroom.
right, you could convert one of those bedrooms to a bathroom. Physical deterioration, you get a repair guy.
Right.
Economic, you basically move. You're like, this is above me, I gotta go.
Right.
So we went over a lot of concepts here, and it doesn't seem like a while, but we've been doing this a little while now. I hope you learned a bunch from this, what we went over today. Did you? All
And
right.
I know you say a lot that, like you can't just do multiple questions. So I think I'm good. I've watched all your webinars. I've done all your tests. I've done other tests. I've studied books, and now I'm gonna go do some multiple test questions in the morning.
Right, and just so you understand, this is why I do the videos, so people understand the concepts and they're just not blindly answering questions.
Right.
So that's the whole point. Well, all
I
right,
think
Amber. Well, good luck tomorrow. And this is Joe from Prep Agent. If you have any comments, leave them below under the comments under the video. And other than that, till next time,
okay, bye.
bye.